Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie, the host of the Whole Triathlete, a podcast where I'm always bringing on new guests to help figure out ways you can improve your performance in triathlons as well as daily life and continue training and racing and playing and having fun as we get older. And as you know, my story, life is not a race, it's a journey. I'm trying to share my experiences with you to help you realize those red flags that happen so you can continue racing and having fun in the sports that you love to do without having health complications. And one of those would be heart health, as we're really pushing the limits to our cardiovascular system, training a lot of hours, lots of volume training for Ironman distance triathlon. And today I have a cardiologist coming on, Dr. Jack Wolfson, and he's a board certified cardiologist, and he's emerged as one of the world leading holistic natural cardiologists. And he has, in Arizona area, the Wolfson Integrative Cardiology Clinic. And I want to learn more about, the Paleo cardiologist and how that can help us as triathletes, endurance athletes, or just trying to optimize our health to a different perspective so we can feel good and recover faster and kind of biohack the aging process. So let's bring him on today and see what we learn. Enjoy. The paleo cardiologist, Dr. Jack Wolfson, on the show from Arizona. You're in Arizona today, are you?
Today we are outside of Aspen, Colorado, and we're loving it. It's raining cats and dogs, as they say, and it's like the first time I've seen rain in a couple months, because in Arizona it really doesn't rain at all. So yeah, we're having a good time here in Colorado.
That's why in Seattle we all want to live in Arizona 6 months of the year, so we have that dry weather. All my clients are moving down there. So I wanted to have you on this show today. A couple of reasons. My dad's had heart disease, and just for 10 years he had a heart attack, heart surgery 10 years ago almost. And so I've seen kind of what traditional medicine does for people with heart disease. And as a personal trainer for 25 years, I've worked with lots of people with heart disease. And as you as a cardiologist, you kind of went into more functional medicine, into anti-aging, into nutrition, paleo method for your training people. So I'd love to just share your story, what brought you from, traditional medicine into this world of helping people get healthier by just doing what your specialty unique program is.
Yeah, sure. I'm a traditionally trained cardiologist. I went through 4 years of medical school, 3 years of internal medicine, 3 years of cardiology. And then I was on the job for a few years, and I just saw so much sickness. And I saw sickness in my own family, including my own father. And eventually my father gets diagnosed with a strange disease at the Mayo Clinic, and the Mayo Clinic says they have no idea why. They have no treatment for him, and he'll be dead within a few years, and that's the way it went down. And at that time, I met the woman who would open up my eyes, and she's a doctor of chiropractic, and she told me exactly why my father was dying. Mayo Clinic had no idea, and this young woman had every idea. Well, this young woman is a doctor of chiropractic, like I said. She soon became my wife, and my life has been a whirlwind ever since. I left the conventional cardiology model in 2012, opened up my own practice in Arizona, where people from all over the world come see me, including a lot of people from Seattle, because they don't get the sunshine. Debbie, I can honestly tell you, I probably got, over the years, maybe 20 to 25 clients, patients, whatever you want to call them, that are from Seattle, just from that area, let alone Portland and Canada and British Columbia, and even as far away as Norway. So left that model, opened up my eyes to becoming a doctor of cause, and really it's not even about just preventing heart disease. It's that if we go after the cause of all disease, we can prevent any disease, and we can also maximize output, of course, in athletes.
Well, it's interesting because that's, as my background as a personal trainer since I was in college, so 25 plus years now, and I'm getting into more, I want to, functional medicine. I became a nutritional therapist last year and a half, and I just want to keep growing as in FDN and all that functional nutrition, because as you found in your industry, I can't get people healthy just training them 2-3 times a week. So I was like, I got to do more. I'm not getting anywhere seeing them as a personal trainer. And if you're trying to, you have the passion and you feel like it's your purpose to really optimize people's health and improve the aging process, there's so much more that we're missing out of, and that we need to combine areas to really get people to feel good and move better and look great on the inside and out. So I love that same story.
Well, Debbie, one of my first experiences when I was in medical school, and we were, some people started having discussions about doing a 24-hour relay, running race, running for 24 hours. And one of the mentors of that was a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist looked like Santa Claus. He had this big old belly, and yet he was known to be an ultra marathon runner. And at the time, I was just baffled, like, how is this guy an ultra marathon runner, yet he's got this big old belly? And I think once I realized that I saw him, and the event was on a track, so it was horribly boring. And I saw this guy, he would take a lap, and then he would have a power bar, and then he would take another lap and have a Gatorade. And you can see that this guy was just pure carb, sugar loading, and he could never get healthy, from that. He was always in a state of high insulin, and insulin just socks away all those nutrients, as into fat, into protein, into glycogen. But when insulin's high, you can't break down fat. So then, so I started seeing some changes, when I would, exercise and try and go to a more of a higher fat model, or at least a quality carb model at the time. And then it really hit the tipping point when I was out in Arizona, and I did a race called the Tour de Tucson, and a 112-mile bike ride. That was a spectacular ride, but about 30 miles into the course, they had a Krispy Kreme donut station where you could stop and load up on your Krispy Kreme donuts. That was right in the beginning of like the craziness of Krispy Kreme. And and it's so horrible, to see. So I think you're right. I think you have to bring in that functional nutrition because nobody else is really talking about it. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, and that's why I have my podcast and wrote a couple books about it. Same thing is that, I go to Ironmans and marathons, and I started doing that stuff in the 90s, and you don't see people looking that healthy. And I think a lot of it's nutrition. So let's go into your specialties, cardiology and nutrition, and getting people healthy. How, as an athlete, endurance athlete, we're pushing ourselves hard, doing lots of volume and doing a lot of harder workouts than we should, and racing. What is your perspective how we can be heart healthy, basically, and be able to do this and not have to go see a cardiologist?
Well, for one thing is that when you're that active, metabolically active, when you're doing the Ironman, when you're running marathons, whatever your activity is, even if it's going to CrossFit, you generate a lot of free radicals. You lead to a lot of oxidative stress. And what that means essentially is that as you go into the mitochondria and as you are making ATP, there is a lot of free radicals and oxidative stress that is created. So if you're not balancing that with antioxidants, and I'm not saying, hey, just go load up on vitamin C, but a full antioxidant strategy that's coming from food, that's coming from sunshine, that's coming from sleep, that's coming from glutathione boosters, that is also, vitamin C, vitamin E, plant polyphenols, etc. If you're not doing that whole combined strategy, well, then that's going to increase your cardiovascular risk, because the literature tells us that the average person that does marathon has a higher risk of coronary artery disease. Why? Because of free radical oxidative stress inflammation. We know that people that are endurance athletes have a much higher risk of atrial fibrillation, which once again is from free radical damage as well. So if we can really give the body the tools it needs to prevent that excess oxidative stress, we're going to break away from that model of excess coronary calcification and atrial fibrillation, which, I've seen so many professional athletes over the years with atrial fibrillation from that endurance activity, and that's something that, we need to break that cycle.
Well, I know I'm in Ben Greenfield's doing this Keon coaching program right now for 5 months that we're doing different modules every week because we're all experienced coaches. So we're kind of running through this. And a lot of it is about, we're just talking about immune and training and fat loss and hormones. And so much of training athletes to improve your performance is doing less. Less is more. And I think so many people are still doing such high workouts, even CrossFit or people doing Orange Theory. People are doing so much because they think more is better. And I'm trying to tell them less is more, and doing for triathletes, doing more 45-minute workouts during the week, calls it ancestral health type of training, and then doing a longer one on the weekend. But I think I find people do a lot of training, and as I did myself as I was racing, and then we sacrifice sleep and proper nutrition and stress management. So I think there's
no doubt, obviously, that, sleep is absolute paramount. And the whole idea, when I was back and I was doing endurance activities, I was in my 20s, I was in my early 30s. And back then you think you are Iron Man, and, you're 29 years old and you're doing whatever you're doing until 1 o'clock in the morning. And then you set your alarm for 4 hours later to get up and jump in a pool, to swim, bike, run. And that's so detrimental to everything that we're talking about. So when you follow that congruence of, you go to sleep with the sun down, believe that or not, like our ancestors did, they woke with the sunrise, and then they did the marathon from Athens to, Sparta or whatever they did. They weren't doing that in the dark. They were doing that when the sun came up. So if we can, do that, we allow our bodies time for recovery and full health. And I'll leave it to people like yourself and Ben Greenfield as far as kind of, what your level should be during the week. I think the other thing too is that, from my standpoint as a cardiologist, I like doing the testing. So you can listen to Ben, you can listen to Debbie Potts, you can listen to anybody. But you know what? You really got to know yourself individually. And I know you're both into that as well. That get the testing done. What are your micronutrients? What are your markers of inflammation? Do you have leaky gut? What are your levels of glutathione? What is your nitric oxide levels? Do nitric oxide salivary testing. And then, really kind of dial in, or what they would say would be, biohack yourself to see what's perfect for you, because we're all individuals.
Yeah. And we stress that a lot in nutritional therapy as practitioners, is that we're bio-individuals. And I think a lot of programs forget that. Everyone just kind of, has this program that everyone does the same, and it's so different. I've been doing fasting and I'm finding my thyroid's low, and it's not good to do fasting. And it's all hormones. You don't know until you get the lab testing and do nutritional therapy, that we do hands-on functional evaluation. But lab testing, I think, is essential. And what you mentioned a few different ones, but for heart health and keep our cells optimally at a high level as we get older, what are some labs and specific ones that you like looking at?
Well, when people come to see me, I do 3 fundamental tests on everybody. One is an advanced cardiovascular assessment. So we're looking at things like advanced lipid numbers, lipoproteins, ApoA, ApoB. We're looking at markers of inflammation, HSCRP, phospholipase A2, or what's known as the plaque test. We're looking at fibrinogen, ferritin. We're looking at myeloperoxidase, oxidized LDL, which is a damaged LDL particle. That really gives us an overall idea as to how they're doing from a cardiovascular standpoint. Listen, none of us want to be out there on a long road ride and have a heart attack, but yet it happens, or it happens soon thereafterwards. I think that the numbers are sudden cardiac death happens about 1 in 30,000 times, which means pretty much every time someone's running a marathon, one of these big giant marathons, like someone's dying. It's pretty scary. So So I love doing that test, and of course, advanced diabetes recognition, insulin levels, advanced thyroid, male-female hormones, vitamin D, homocysteine, LP(a), all these markers. And the company I use is a company called Vibrant America out of San Francisco. They're phenomenal, state-of-the-art testing. They also have a test that's available on our website called the micronutrient test, and the micronutrient test looks at serum levels, but also intracellular levels of all these different vitamins and minerals. Also intracellular glutathione. Inside the cell is where all the magic happens. And then ultimately, also my favorite thing for intracellular testing is vitamin K.
So cellular level, we talk a lot about that lately in nutrition functional medicine, but talk a little bit more what nitric oxide is for people that don't know, and then glutathione. We talk about that all the time in nutritional therapy, but maybe explain for the listeners, why are those like hot items right now? And then K2 is the third one, and mitochondrial health, but I keep hearing about K2. So share kind of with listeners what that is for athletes.
Okay, so vitamin K2 is responsible for keeping calcium in the bones and out of the arteries. That's really fundamental. So, and intracellular testing tells us is the K2 getting inside of the cells, and I believe it's kind of holy grail cardiovascular stuff where we're reversing cardiovascular disease, pulling the calcium and the cholesterol out of plaque and putting it back into circulation to the liver for reprocessing. You mentioned glutathione. Well, glutathione is the body's main antioxidant, and if you don't measure your numbers, how do you know where you're at? How do you know if we can do some techniques to boost up glutathione? So we definitely want to test that out, the serum levels and intracellular levels. And then finally, you also mentioned nitric oxide, and that's where salivary nitric oxide testing comes in. Nitric oxide is the vasodilator. If you go to the hospital with chest pain, they give you a nitroglycerin under the tongue. We open up the blood vessels and let the blood flow. And techniques to increase nitric oxide are super important, evidence-based methods to improve your exercise capacity, endurance, recovery, all very important. And one of my favorite products for that is our organic heartbeat product, which is a beetroot powder. Other nitric oxide boosters like L-arginine, L-citrulline, L-taurine. We created a product called Vessel Support for that as well. So that kind of combination, which also helps for libido, helps for erectile function, helps for female erectile function as well in the literature. So we want to do those strategies. We want to test those strategies. And that's where the Vibrant micronutrient testing comes in. And the third test I run on everybody is a leaky gut panel. Mm-hmm. Leaky gut panel is so important to identify, do you have leaky gut? If you have leaky gut, you can have leaky heart, leaky brain, basically poor blood vessel function, endothelial cell dysfunction. If you have endothelial cell dysfunction because of that leaky gut, leaky endothelium, you're in trouble. You're in trouble from a wellness standpoint, from a success standpoint as an athlete. But like I said, this is life and death type stuff that we got to check out.
What labs do you do for leaky gut tests? What tests do you do?
I use Vibrant America as well, and their test is called the Wheat Zoomer, and that test is available on our website. We send out the kit, find you a lab, and then you get to go over the results with one of our health coaches or with Debbie Potts and her team over there. So yeah, I mean the important thing really is not who sells this information and the ideas. It's just a matter of, hey, if you're out there, get this done. Work with Debbie, work with a holistic, work with a health coach, work with a nutritionist, work with a medical doctor like myself, that's doing these things. But don't go asking your regular doctor, as you know, because they will have no clue about anything we just talked about.
And that's huge. And it's hard for me to, if I have, personal training clients, I don't listen to necessarily podcasts in the functional medicine world, but it's, everyone goes to their doctor for everything and they go by what they say. And we're kind of trained and grown up that way, that you don't know something, go to your doctor, or you read the internet and there's, a lot of mixed messages on it. The internet's Google search of something, but it's, how do you get people to really, they have to hit rock bottom before they start to look at alternative methods? Like, what is the stories that you might have heard from your patients that see you from probably already seeing other cardiologists? How do they end up to you?
Well, I think the health revolution is on, and everybody is turning to the internet. They're, the group of people that you train and under your guidance. I mean, they're not running to their medical doctor, and you run to your medical doctor and you get antibiotics or you get psych meds or, you get statin drugs and aspirin and, blood pressure drugs, like in my world. Listen, I like I said, I did 10 years of medical training. We learn about pills and procedures. We don't learn about health and wellness. We don't learn about nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, physical activity, the importance of sleep, sunshine, evidence-based supplements. We learn none of that. And I know because I was there. So yeah, you can't go to your conventional doctor. They've got nothing for you. Yet if you do go out to Dr. Google, you can learn a lot as Dr. Google. But no, as you're talking to your friends, you see that, the guy on the bike next to you who's kicking your ass, he's working with some kind of holistic functional provider, and you're stuck in the old model and you're done. I mean, the best athletes in the world are not going to see the Garden Variety MD. They're talking to people like us.
So going back to triathletes, like we're going Ironman Hawaii is on this month, and there's a lot of people that are top athletes of the world. Like I said, a lot of people can get a heart attack or have heart disease issues from excessive training, but I think a lot of it is probably from chronic stress or just doing too much in life. So what are some big red flags and symptoms of someone struggling with some heart issues? Because I think a lot of people don't really know the signs and symptoms.
Well, from a heart standpoint, I mean, obviously the obvious things are chest pain, shortness of breath, it may be palpitations, racing heart feelings. I mean, those are the fundamental things. But I think that most people have no warning. Take someone like Bob Harper from the TV show The Biggest Loser. And if you look at that guy, wow, that guy looks like an Iron Man. He looks incredibly fit. He's, muscled out, chiseled, and probably eats pretty well from what he says on the show. I haven't seen too many episodes. But then the guy has a massive heart attack. Why? Because I'm sure he's under constant stress being in front of the TV camera. He's in the artificial lights. He lives in New York. He doesn't get sunshine, probably gets lousy sleep, noise pollution, on and on and on, and boom, he has a massive heart attack. So we can't live that kind of lifestyle. Those people that that do it like I used to do it as a cardiology fellow when I was training for Ironmans and triathlons and whatnot. Once again, I would stay up, for most of the night on call, and then I would wake up the next morning and go to the gym. I mean, unfortunately, it's a recipe for disaster. You can't do that if you want good outcomes. You're really, really putting yourself at major risk. Mm-hmm. So, once again, there's no amount of success that's worth dying for. We know that from steroid abusers. Like, these people are all dead, and professional athletes, that have died because of steroid use. For example, it's like you cannot play with your health because you're going to suffer the consequences sooner or later.
I know it's hard because you just want to do more, and people train more, and they're just trying to fit more into the day. And that's what my book, Life is Not a Race, is, that they get up in the morning way too early and don't stop running around till they go to bed at night. Then they don't sleep through the night. They wake up at 2 a.m. and have all those chronic stress side effects and red flags. So, I'm trying to share people, what are some red flags I can see along the way so I don't get to having a heart attack or, all these different symptoms we get, or for me is, adrenal issues, HP axis, that 5 years later, I still can't do an Ironman because I dug myself in too big of a hole that I can't get out of. So I think a lot of it's just helping people know those things. So with that, can you share a little bit what you do at your clinic? You have your program there. You said the lab test. So what is Wolfson Integrative Cardiology different about? So lab testing, anything else you wanted to share?
Well, it's really just the educational pieces, that we talked about, really just trying to teach people the importance of a lifestyle. And it's not about taking supplements, and it's not about doing the lab testing. Those are important, but the most things that I try and stress into people, once again, the importance of sleep, the importance of sunshine, the importance of getting the chemicals out of your life. So fabric softeners, dryer sheets, colognes, perfumes, Glade plugins, toxic products around the house, the new paint, the new flooring, the new car smell. Those are all very, very unhealthy. And it's, once again, it's all evidence-based stuff that we're talking about, that these are all poisons and affect things like nitric oxide levels, for example, and of course, free radical damage, and of course, oxidative stress and leaky gut for that matter. So those are the things we really talk about. And then, of course, we go into the advanced testing that we do with people. And, like you said, the most, it's often been said, the most common risk factor, or the most common symptom that people have, that we can identify them as having an increased risk of cardiac problems, is pain. Not even chest pain, but just pain. Getting up in the morning and having aches and pains, or knee pain, joint pain. That's not a sign for ibuprofen. That's a sign to back off what you're doing, because that kind of pain is linked to inflammation, and inflammation is linked to heart attack, stroke, and death. So you don't want that in your life. You need to get that out of your life.
There's Nina, what's her name? Nina did that book. It's an amazing book, the 10 years of research, The Big Fat Surprise. And
yeah, Nina Tischholz, or Tischholz,
yeah. She had that great book. And I always tell clients, if you really want to know the truth about the myth of heart disease and cholesterol, saturated fats, read that book, because it has 10 years of research she did. Has half the book is all the studies that she put in there. But that's a great myth buster. People want to really learn what causes heart disease, is what they say, inflammation, as you're saying. And where is that inflammation coming from? From the foods you eat. Even Ben Greenfield in our program, we talk about fat loss, and the biggest area to help people lose weight was not necessarily sleep and stress and what you eat, but the hydrogenated processed oils that were the big thing causing inflammation, leading to other problems. So it's
once again, and nutrition, you just, hit the nail on the head right there. And frankly, I'm into paleo nutrition. I'm into eating the foods our ancestors ate for millions of years. How do we debate that? How do we say that we're going to go super low fat, yet we know so much about avocado, we know so much about whole coconut, and we know so much about seafood and omega-3s. People that have the highest risk, they have the highest levels of omega-3, have the lowest risk of everything. Where do you get your omega-3 from? You don't get it from eating flax seeds and chia seeds. You get it from eating seafood, which also contains a significant amount, which is omega-3 fat. Yeah. Breast milk is all saturated fat. Is breast milk bad for babies? It's all saturated fat. An egg brings a chicken to life. You cannot raise a chicken on oatmeal. These are basic tenets that the average doctor, of course, they've lost this common sense. But going back to the inflammation, it's not just about the food. Sunshine is so critical to lower inflammation, lower oxidative stress, increase nitric oxide levels, sleep, for all those things, same things as well. So nutrition is a factor, but one of the more, it may be more important. The sunshine and the sleep is more important than nutrition, because frankly, the sun was here before human beings. Sleep cycles were here before human beings. Food really only came later. Food was on the evolutionary scale, food was made from the sun, interacting, with stuff, with vitamins and minerals from the soil, and that's how plants make food. So all this stuff predates that, and a lot of people believe that as well. I'm not saying don't eat. Nutrition is obviously very important, but more important than that really is the quality of sleep and the sunshine. That's really, because those factors are not debatable. Nutrition, you can get in all these different interesting debates, but once again, get on the right nutrition plan for you, which I think is and for this, Debbie, for sure, can we all agree that everything should be organic? So if you're low fat or you're low carb, do everything organic, keep the chemicals and pesticides out of your food. But I'll say one more thing. Back when I was a cardiology fellow in the year 2000, I saw a debate between Dean Ornish and the late Robert Atkins. So it was low fat versus low carb. And I walked out of that 45-minute debate with these guys vehemently hating each other. And I said, I'm an Atkins guy, and obviously Atkins was not about, clean eating, and it didn't matter where your fat came from. So yeah, he would have said shovel in, partially hydrogenated, soybean oil, and that would have been okay for Atkins, not okay for us.
Yeah. So, there's As the paleo cardiologist in your book, Natural Way to Heart Health, what are some big 5 takeaways that we haven't discussed yet that you think would be great to share with endurance athletes that are type A personalities doing too much? So I know we talked about sleep, circadian rhythm, the inflammation from the oils we're eating, getting out vitamin D and sunshine is always what I tell everyone, doing those natural nature walks outside and getting out there. So what are some things that we're missing that you should want to kind of get people to read that book to learn more?
Ooh, 5 things. Okay, number 1, eat the organs. Our ancestors in preference would of course eat liver and heart. Talk about CoQ10 and mitochondrial production of ATP. Why not get it from the source? And that the greatest source is the heart. So eating those organs like our ancestors ate, that's why we created a product called Paleo Multi. And it's a multi-glandular product, 3 tablets a day, called Paleo Multi, from the finest animals in the world, because we can talk about the benefits of organ meats.
I'm not going to do it, but I'll take a pill, but don't tell me what's in it.
So let's put it into a tablet, chewy tablet form. Okay, so that's number 1, because you challenged me with 5. Number 2, staying on the food scale, spices. A lot of paleo people, they're eating ribeyes and grass-fed beef, and they're eating the seafood, but you got to dump the spices on there. That's nature's pharmacy: rosemary, thyme, turmeric, cumin, bay leaves, all those different. Go into the spice drawer and just dump it onto your food, dump it into salads, dump it into your greens drinks. That's very, very important.
I was doing kelp flakes too. Do you ever do that? Like kelp seasoning? It's good. Iodine for those. So
seaweed is tremendous. So all those sea vegetables that you mentioned, dulse, kelp, nori, wakame, mix that into your salads. Just eat it straight out of the bag. Those are all just incredible. And then for sodium retention, to replenish your salt while you're racing, that's something you can do is dulse, which is higher on the sodium side. I would probably soak it first to rinse off some of the salt. But still it'll have significant salt content, and that can really help you, cramping and stuff like that. Number 3, sticking on food again, fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha. Some of those actually do contain fermented sea vegetables as well. So you can look at a product for those. EMF. I mean, how about if you're out there and you're riding or whatever, and you got, these like earphones in and stuff like that, you're just blowing electromagnetic frequencies right into your brain. Your heart is all electrical, your brain is all electrical, and now we're being bombarded with this EMF exposure. That is absolutely horrible. That's number 4. And number 5, choose a holistic primary care provider. My choice for that is a doctor of chiropractic. Not because my wife is behind me, like prodding me to mention chiropractic. It's because chiropractic helps balance the autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic, sympathetic tone. Your doctor of chiropractic has a lot of different techniques to do that. So make the functional chiropractor your primary care doctor.
Yes, that's a great list. We'll type all that up in the show notes because there's a lot of great information. And you can find your book on your website probably. And where do you want to send everyone to?
My book is an Amazon bestseller. It's available on Amazon, The Paleo Cardiologist, The Natural Way to Heart Health. But you know what? Amazon has enough money. Feel free to purchase it from us. Support the Doctors Wolfson and our message. It's available on our website as well. The Paleo Cardiologist, 17 chapters, The Natural Way to Heart Health, over 300 references in there. And it's not, once again, it's not about paleo nutrition. It's about the paleo lifestyle. Debbie, I'm a firm believer that the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, if we all lived that lifestyle where we're on that remote island eating coconuts, fish, and vegetables, we're going to sleep with the sun down, waking with the sunrise, getting morning, noon, and afternoon sun away from the chemicals, we'll live forever. We will live forever. There's no doubt about it. So get as close as you can to that island. We're on social media at The Doctors Wolfson. Join us on Facebook, on Instagram, our website, thedoctorswolfson.com. Doctors is abbreviated DRS, and you can find us over there. So there you go.
And you're speaking at a bunch of different seminars always. So any conferences coming up that are in the next 6 months?
Well, I'm doing a bunch of doctors, type stuff. I guess the main thing that I'll be doing for the public probably that comes to mind is the Integrative Healthcare Symposium, which is in New York City, and that event has gotten huge. They're getting about 2,500 people there. I'm speaking on that Thursday afternoon. I want to say it's kind of like February, like 18th or 22nd or something like that. So that'll be phenomenal. And, and of course, I'm always speaking out on YouTube and social media. So, for example, there was a huge study that came out a couple weeks ago about how dangerous aspirin is for those age 70 and older for primary prevention. So that data came across my my email alerts, and I immediately did a video on it because I want everyone to know how dangerous aspirin is. There's better alternatives. There's, statins are poison, on and on and on. And I talk about all that in my book as well.
I love that. And I wish, my parents are 77 and they're not going to listen to me anymore. So it's harder with your parents that, all that information, but to get people, different generations to understand that instead of just, I listen to all them and their friends in Palm Desert, everyone's in their late 70s, early 80s. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating because they're on all these meds. And then the doctor just gives another one. They see someone else. They don't know what to do. And it's just this ongoing thing that is just makes me more passionate about doing nutritional therapy and learning more in functional medicine and sending people to you like that, because it's just, we're all aging, the baby boomers getting up there, that we have to start looking at this way, especially as you said, all these environmental toxins and EMF, and there's just so much in our environment we need to really look at a little more seriously as we get more into it and get older. So improving that aging process for sure.
Yeah, I mean, most certainly, obviously I got a lot of patients that are in that older generation, but a lot of them, of course, they're just of that 1970s, belief, paradigm where, hey, whatever this doctor says is gospel. But, it sounds self-serving, but the best thing you can do for someone, I think, is give them the gift of information. In a holiday season, coming up, November, December, someone's birthdays, what better thing than to give them the gift of health and wellness? So a book like mine, books like yours, just get that into the hands of people. Because sometimes, as you know, the one-on-one conversation, especially amongst family members, can be very difficult. But it's like, hey, you know what? I love you. I got this phenomenal book that I would really like you to read, written by a board-certified cardiologist. Take a look and see what you think. So that's all we can do is provide people with the information, and then it's up to them.
Yes, for sure. Well, great idea for gifts, and that's that time of year coming up already. It's like Labor Day and then it's New Year's, so it just goes so fast. So great idea for gifts. I know what I'm getting my dad, but I need the audiobook too. So thank you so much, and I look forward to meeting you in person and hopefully get down there myself. I need to get all those labs done as well. And you do get those labs a couple times a year. How often people should get tested?
Well, usually what I tell people is, when they come to my office, we test them at time 0, and then a few weeks later when all the results are back, we go over the results, and then we put them on the full plan, and then typically 90 days after that. So sure, you can do them as far advanced as you want in the future, but pretty much everybody in my practice is kind of at time 0 and then at 90 days, 3 months later.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'll put that on the show notes, and people can ask questions on our Facebook page, The Whole Athlete Podcast, and ask any questions. We'll send them to your Facebook page and video channel. So thank you so much for that information and sharing your passion and purpose and how you're making an impact in our world.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.